everyone, Jennifer Maker here. It is a beautiful day to stop and smell the roses. Paper roses, that is. So one of the very first things that I ever made with my Cricut cutting machine was a paper flower. I fell in love with them and I began to design paper flowers myself. I picked a rose from my bush outside my house, pulled off all the petals, and traced them one at a time to use them as a template in my design software. I wanted my rose to be as realistic as possible. Aren't they just so pretty? So from there, I was hooked. And since then, I've made all kinds of paper flowers. I even wrote a book about paper flowers. One of the most popular paper flower projects can be made with just a few supplies, really. It's super simple, but oh so beautiful. So come with me to my craft table and I will show you how to do it, show you everything we need, and we'll make it together. So aren't these paper flower shadow boxes just so pretty? I just love shadow boxes, especially when they're packed with roses like these. These remind me of those beautiful high-end boxes of roses. They're just so beautiful, but there's one big difference. The real ones are really, really pricey, selling anywhere from $100 upward to more than $1,000. Can you even imagine? These paper flower shadow boxes are just as stunning, in my opinion, but oh so much less expensive. So here's everything that you need to make one of your own. Now, the first, we need a shadow box, of course. The one I'm using is 10 by 10 inches, but you can really use any size you want. And I'm sharing a really handy cheat sheet with this tutorial that will show you exactly how many roses you need for a variety of different shadow box sizes. Now you'll also need some good quality cardstock. I recommend 65-pound cardstock that is solid core, not white core. Solid core means it's the same color through and through. If the packaging doesn't say what color the core is, just turn the paper on its side and check to see if it appears to be the same color or if it looks white. If it's the same color like this one, it's solid core. You'll also want a quilling tool to wrap your flowers and a dowel to shape the petals, along with a hot glue gun. I cut my paper roses on a Cricut cutting machine, and I'll show you how to do that too in this tutorial. And for that, you'll want a machine mat and a brayer, and your fine point blade, of course. And if you're going to add a sentiment to your shadow box, as I did, you'll want some permanent vinyl, transfer tape, and a weeding tool. Now I've included some beautiful hand-lettered designs that I think you'll love putting on your shadow boxes too. So let me show you where to get those free, and then we'll make our own paper flower shadow box together. Step 1, get my free paper flower shadow box designs. Go to jennifermaker.com/369 and look for libraries in the red bar at the top. And then either click Get a Password if you don't yet have one, or click Enter the library. You can find the designs by searching the page for design number 369 and then click it to download a zip file with SVG files for cutting on a Cricut or another cutting machine, DXF files, and printable PDFs for cutting by hand. I'm going to show you how to cut these designs on a Cricut cutting machine. First, upload the SVG cut file to Cricut Design Space. If you're not sure how to do this, go to jennifermaker.com/svgs to learn how. My design file includes some hand-lettered quotes that you can apply to the glass of your shadow box frame, as well as my popular paper rose design, which I will be using in this tutorial. Step 2, size your paper flowers. One of the most popular questions I get from crafters is, how many paper flowers should I make to fill my shadow box frame? I totally get it, but I'm going to walk you through my foolproof method for determining the number of paper flowers that you need to make to fill any size shadow box. So to do this, I'm going to start by cutting and assembling one paper rose. After you've uploaded my paper rose design in Cricut Design Space, click Make It. If you're going to use a Maker 3 or Explorer 3 machine, you'll be asked if you want to cut on mat or off a mat. Select On Mat. On the preview screen over on the left, change the paper size to 8.5 by 11, which is the size of the cardstock that I'm using for this project, and then click Continue. For your materials, select medium cardstock 80 pound. And for pressure, I always like to select a little bit more pressure to get a nice clean cut. Place a piece of cardstock on a blue light grip machine mat. You can also use a green standard grip machine mat. Now load your fine point blade into clamp B. Load your machine mat into your Cricut and press the load button, and then press the go button when it begins to flash. After your paper rose is finished cutting, press the load unload button to remove the mat, and then to remove the cardstock from your mat, flip your mat over onto your work surface and slightly bend the mat back to release the cardstock. This helps prevent the paper from curling. Now, using a paper quilling tool, place the outside end of the paper rose into the quilling tool and begin rolling the quilling tool so that the paper rose winds around it until you get to the end. Now just pull the rolled paper rose off the quilling tool to remove it. Now add hot glue to the bottom of the rolled paper flower and then place the circle piece on top of the hot glue. To avoid burning your fingers, I highly recommend wearing hot glue finger protectors. You can manipulate the petals by spreading them out. You can also use a small wooden dowel to curl the petals if you wish. I'm using a 1/8 inch wooden dowel to curl my petals by rolling the petals around the wooden dowel, just like this. You can also curl the petals before rolling the paper flower on the quilling tool. Either way is fine. Here is my pretty paper rose. Now I'm going to measure the width and length of my flower. My paper rose measures 1.5 inches around. Now get your shadow box frame, open up the back. Measure the height and width of the interior of the frame. Notice that my shadow box frame has a removable interior frame. You want to measure the height and width inside this frame if you also have the same thing. The interior of my frame measures 9.5 inches both ways. To determine the amount of flowers that I need from the width, I will divide the interior measurement of the frame width, which is 9.5 inches, by the width of the paper rose, which is 1.5 inches. So 9.5 divided by 1.5 equals 6.33, which I'm going to round up to 7. I'm going to do the same thing to determine the number of roses that I need for the height. Divide the interior frame height by the height of the flower. Since the height of my rose and frame is the same as the width, I know I will need 7. Now just take the number of paper roses for the width and multiply it by the number of paper roses needed for the height. For my frame, I'm multiplying 7 by 7, which gives me 49. This is the number of roses that I'm going to cut for my paper flower shadow box. I bet you didn't think you'd be doing math to make paper flowers. If you find that your assembled paper flower looks too small or too large for the size frame that you're using, you can resize it. To change the size of the paper rose design, click on the design in Cricut Design Space, and then use your mouse to adjust the size by dragging the double-ended arrow icon on the lower right side of the bounding box, which I often call the resize handle. You can also type a new measurement in the toolbar at the top of the canvas under size. But make sure to keep the lock locked to maintain the aspect ratio of the design. Now, if you're using a different size frame, I've got you covered. Here's a look at how many paper roses you need to fill various shadow box sizes. The wide measurement is how wide your paper rose will be once you cut and assemble it. The tall measurement is the height that you need to change your paper rose design to in Cricut Design Space. It's important to note everyone rolls paper flowers a little differently, which I think is cool. These quantities are estimates based on the finished width size of the flower. It's also important to note that the larger the flower, the taller it will be. For example, a paper rose that is 8 inches tall in Design Space will need a shadow box frame with a height of 2 inches. Step 3. Cut your paper flowers. Now that we know how many paper flowers we need to fill the frame, let's go back to Design Space to cut the rest. Based on the size of my paper rose design, I think I can fit 2 rose designs on one 8.5 by 11 inch sheet of cardstock. So I'm going to duplicate my rose design to make sure. To duplicate the paper rose design, just select the design and click duplicate at the top of the layers panel. Now I'm going to click Make It to see if 2 roses will fit onto one sheet of cardstock. And I'll click on Mat on the next screen. On the Prepare screen over on the left, change the paper size to 8.5 by 11 on the left side of the screen. Notice that the design has been moved and rotated to fit our new paper size. So we can see that we can definitely fit 2 paper roses on one sheet of cardstock. To cut 50 flowers, because I want to have 1 extra, I can change the number of project copies in the upper left corner from 1 to 25, right? Because I have 2 flowers, right? So we don't want 50. That would be 100. We want 25 copies. So I'm going to change it to 25 and then click Apply. If you look down, you'll notice the material size also changed when we clicked Apply. It now calls for 12 by 12 inch cardstock instead of 8.5 by 11 inch cardstock, which is what we're using. If you're using 12 by 12 inch cardstock, you can leave it alone. If not, that's an easy fix. Scroll down and click on the window under Material Size, then choose 8.5 by 11 inch in the drop-down menu, and it will apply that to all of the mats. Isn't that cool? So what if you want to create an ombre effect with your paper flower shadow box? If you don't already know, an ombre effect is the visual gradation from a light color to a dark color or vice versa. I think it's really pretty, so let me show you how. If you recall, my shadow box needs 7 rows of roses from top to bottom. Well, 3 doesn't divide equally into 7. Therefore, I'm going to make the bottom 3 rows a dark red, the middle 2 rows a medium red, and the top 2 rows a lighter red. So I'll select one of the paper rose designs and then click on the red next to Basic Cut in the Operations section of the toolbar at the top of the canvas. Now let's change that to medium red from the drop-down material color choices. Click on a different paper rose design and change the color of this rose to the darkest red from the material color choices. You should have 3 rose designs with 3 different shades of red like mine. Now we will duplicate each flower so we have enough to fill our shadow box. We will start with the darkest rose design. We need 21 of these. So you can duplicate it 4 times and then group 4 flowers and duplicate the group 4 times to get 25, which is fine, because it's always a good idea to have extra flowers in case of mistakes along the way. Next, we will duplicate the other 2 shades of red. We need 14 of each, so we will select them by dragging a bounding box over them, and then we'll duplicate them 6 times, which gives us 7 of each shade. Now group all of those together and duplicate once, and now we have 14 of the color. And now we're ready to cut our paper flowers. If you're wondering why we did this rather than just use the project copies on the next page, it's because we don't have the same number of each color, right? All right, so you'll need 7 sheets of cardstock for the lightest red rose and 7 sheets for the medium red rose, and you'll need 11 sheets of the darkest red rose. To cut the roses, follow the same steps that I walked you through earlier to cut our single paper rose. Cutting all of my paper roses took me approximately an hour and a half. This time can depend upon your speed and if you have more than one mat to cut with, because if you have more than one mat, you can load one up while another one is cutting and then just keep feeding mats into your Cricut. Step 4. Assemble the paper roses. Now that we have all of our paper roses cut, it's time to assemble them. Curling the paper rose petals is completely optional. I think it makes the roses look more realistic. I'm going to show you what my paper rose looks like when I curl all the petals before versus after rolling the flower. So first we roll the flower and then we curl the petals. So get your quilling tool and take the outer end of the cardstock and slide it into the slot of your quilling tool. Begin rolling your quilling tool so that your cardstock winds around the tip. When you come to the end of the strip, gently pull the rolled cardstock off the quilling tool and turn the paper rose over and add hot glue to the bottom. Flip the round circle tab on the top of the hot glue. Use a hot glue finger protector to avoid burning your fingers, and then continue holding the hot glue until it's cooled. With a small wooden dowel, roll the ends of the petals around the dowel to give them shape. The dowel that I'm using is 1/8 of an inch, and this is what my paper rose looks like. Now let's curl the petals before we roll the flower. Just like we did before, use a wooden dowel and roll the petals over the dowel to give them shape. Once that's done, place the outside end of the paper flower onto the quilling tool and begin spinning the quilling tool to wrap the paper petals around the tip until you get to the end. Now, on the left is the paper rose that I put together first, then shape the petals. On the right is the rose where I curled the petals first and then rolled the flower. Can you see the difference? Which one do you like best? Let me know in the comments. So decide which method you like best and then continue rolling all of your paper roses. Step 5. Arrange your flowers in a shadow box. Once all of your flowers are assembled, it's time to lay them out and glue them to the inside back of your shadow box frame. Remove the back of the frame. Make sure you lay the back of the frame on your work surface so the hook is toward the top. Take the inner frame and place it on top of the frame back. You can apply some hot glue to keep it from moving if you want. I'm going to begin by using my hot glue gun to add 3 rows of the darkest red color roses at the bottom of the frame. Now I'm going to take the medium red color roses and glue on 2 rows. And finally, I'm gluing in 2 rows of light red roses to finish off the frame. Here are my 49 assembled paper roses in my paper shadow box. Step 6, add a quote or a sentiment or a name. All right, so here are my hand-lettered quotes that are included in this project free. You can use one of these or make your own. The quotes included in my design file are sized for the 10 by 10 inch shadow box frame in my supply list, but you can resize them to fit your frame. I love adding a happy or encouraging quote to my paper flower shadow boxes or a name, of whoever I'm giving it to, but of course this step is optional. For this frame, I'm going to put the word love, so I will drag love off to the right, select everything that I want to hide and click group. And then click on the eye icon next to that group and the layers panel to hide it. Then when I'm ready, I'm going to go ahead and click Make It. Since I'm using my Maker 3 and I'm cutting with Smart Vinyl, I'm going to select Without Matte. But if you're not using the Maker 3 or Explorer 3, or you're just using regular vinyl on a mat, you'll want to choose On Matte, or you might not even see this screen. If your vinyl is the same color on the front and the back, you can choose to apply your quote to the top of the glass or the inside of your glass. If you apply the quote to the inside of your glass, make sure to toggle Mirror to On the Prepare screen. For my base material, I'm selecting Smart Vinyl Permanent, and for pressure, I'm changing it to More. Now for Smart Vinyl, you simply load the vinyl into your machine like you would a cutting mat. Make sure the backing is facing down. If you have a Cricut roll holder for Smart Vinyl, attach it to your machine and feed your vinyl through the guides. Then click the Load button and press the flashing button to start cutting. When your vinyl is all done, remove it from the machine and weed your vinyl quote with a weeding tool. To use a weeding tool, you just remove all the excess vinyl that you don't want to transfer to your frame. Then apply transfer tape to the top of your weeded design using the taco method. This is where I curl the transfer tape like a taco or a U shape and apply the center of the taco to the vinyl first. And then I smooth it outward from the center. Then you use a scraper tool to transfer the vinyl to the transfer tape. Be sure to burnish both the front and back sides. Before applying the vinyl, be sure to clean your glass. Add some rubbing alcohol to a lint-free cloth or a coffee filter. Coffee filters are lint-free, that's why we use them. Remove the glass from the frame and wipe the coffee filter or your lint-free cloth on the glass to remove any residue, and do this to both sides of the glass. Place the glass back in the frame carefully and add the paper flowers and then close the frame. Keep in mind, if you're applying your quote to the inside of your frame, you'll want to apply the vinyl to your glass before putting it back in the frame. Otherwise, turn your frame over and decide on the best placement for your quote. Remove the backing from the vinyl and place the quote on the glass. Use a scraper tool to transfer the vinyl to the glass and then peel off the transfer tape. And this is what my finished paper flower shadow box looks like. Isn't it gorgeous? I just love these, and I know you do too. I've seen everyone's make so many of these, and I think you're going to love making these. Now, if you have any questions about paper flowers or shadow boxes that didn't get answered here, or anything craft related that I might be able to help you with, please let me know. Leave your question below this video or ask over at our awesome Cricut Crafters group at jennifermaker.com/Cricut Crafters. I love to help and see you succeed. To learn more about other styles of flowers that you can make, watch my 10 paper flowers with Cricut video. And to learn more about other things that you can do with paper flowers, ways to display them, watch my paper flower wall art decor video. And that's it for today. This is Jennifer Maker reminding you to craft a life you love.